Before leaving, please remember to make a contribution to all of my thousands of hours of work here. PayPal, Patreon, or fundraiser in the description below or on the China Rising Radio Sinoland article page. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, on the beaches of Normandy, and I'm going to go 9 hours west, 9 time zones west, across the Atlantic Ocean, across the continent of North America to Los Angeles in California, and to have Randy Shields on the show today. How are you doing, Randy?
I'm doing great, Jeff.
Hey, listen, Randy is, I love his little blurb. Randy is a Marxist, vegan writer and artist who believes that individuals should never stop challenging themselves to lead more compassionate and sustainable lives while working collectively to make those changes easier, faster, and more widespread. Hey, man, that solves all the world's problems right there. Randy has a website. It's real easy, www.randyshields.com. And of course, Randy is spelled R-A-N-D-Y. He is a woodworking artist, and if you look behind him, you can see some of his pieces in his office there in Los Angeles. He is also has written a book called Some Fantastic Place, which is there. He's going to show it to us. There you go, written in photo essays, and the cover is by Sue Coe, a well-respected graphic artist. So thank you for showing that to us. None of us like Amazon, but it is available on Amazon. But if you can order it from, well, the best thing to do is to order it for your local library, and that way a lot of other people can benefit from it. And Randy has written several times for the Greenville Post, and that's how I know about him. And last month, on the Greenville Post, he wrote an incredible photo essay, kind of a photo essay, a collection of photos entitled "Angelinos March Against Israel's Massacre in Gaza." Photo reportage by Randy Shields, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, thank you for being on the show, Randy. I'm really looking forward to hearing what happened.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I love your work. I love your interviews.
Thank you very much. Well, tell us, for those who maybe don't know what happened last month, or what's happened since 1917. But we really probably don't have time to go that far back in the history of Palestine, modern Palestine, but at least recently for last month, tell us why there were protests, and then the 10 days of fury, and then the ceasefire last month, and then the incredible, and then you were in the middle of this incredible protest. Tell us what was going on and bring us up to date.
Well, a little bit of background. Israel is kicking Palestinians out of an area in East Jerusalem called Sheikh Jarrah. And at the end of Ramadan, they also went into the Al-Aqsa Mosque and were launching, rubber bullets and flashbang grenades. So basically, Jerusalem was under attack. And what was different this time compared to other Gaza-Israel wars is that the Gaza resistance groups came to the aid of Jerusalem. So the Gaza resistance groups gave Israel like 24 hours to stop doing everything they were doing in Jerusalem. That time passed, and then the Gaza resistance groups started launching missiles and rockets at Israel. And then, of course, Israel responded with, very disproportionate force. So, but this was something completely different than previous wars. Like the Palestinian people themselves were demanding that Gaza do something. Both the Palestinians on the West Bank and within Gaza, they wanted some kind of response, even though they knew they were going to be severely punished for it. So this went on for like 11 days.
Yeah, 10 or 11 days, as I recall. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, we had these protests all over the world on May 15th. It was a Saturday. And so I went to the one in Los Angeles, and you never know what to expect here because I've been to anti-intervention protests where there's maybe like 75 people, or one against Venezuela a few years ago. Even though the streets in LA were all blocked off, there were only like about 250 people there. So I had no idea what to expect this time. But as soon as I got on the 405, I saw a caravan of like a dozen pickup trucks and cars with people waving the Palestinian flag, standing up through their sunroofs and, on the beds of the pickup truck. And then every exit anywhere near the rally site at the Westwood Federal Building was blocked off by Caltrans and the police. You couldn't get anywhere near where we needed to go for this protest.
Huh.
So I drove up to like the Sunset exit, and then I started going through the neighborhoods trying to get to the protest, just like everybody else was. And by the time I got to Wilshire, that was all blocked off. And then we found out that every public parking garage and every public parking lot was blocked off by police cars. They had them sideways on every driveway so that you could not get anywhere near the Westwood Federal Building. So I ended up parking in, I don't know, I think it was like Brentwood by that time, in some little neighborhood. And I knew I was already going to be like about an hour late. I was just hoping that it would still be going on. And then thousands of people were in the same, boat I was in. We were all walking towards the federal building. And so we get up to the pedestrian bridge over the 405, and it's blocked off. But we start like walking. The cops say, no, you can't do that. You got to go down Veterans, and then you got to go over to Ohio, and then, all these different streets. Basically, we had to walk like about 2 miles just to get to where we were supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time we get there, there's an incredible crowd there, and the speeches are still going on. And then when we started marching down Wilshire Boulevard, it's about a mile from the Westwood Federal Building to the Israeli consulate, which is also on Westwood, or it's on Wilshire. So the streets from one side of the street to the other, for as far as you could see behind and in front, there were just people. And the people who organized this did a phenomenal job, and they estimated the crowd size somewhere between 20 and 25,000 people.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I didn't know that many people in the United States even knew about the Palestinian cause.
It was, yeah, like I said, I didn't know what to expect before I was there. It was just incredible. And I can change the screen and show you a few things here.
Yeah, you can go ahead and show them on your half of the and then I really encourage everybody to go to Randy's article on the Greenville Post, where you can see all these photos in full bloom. So when I saw those photos, it was like I couldn't believe it. I didn't think anybody would even care about Palestine, and the way the Zionists have got the media locked up in the United States. I was surprised that anybody even knew about it. So I hats off to everybody in Los Angeles for getting out there and having to fight all the resistance by the police, blocking roads, blocking parking lots, and blocking everything else. To try to diminish the protest. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it was. They didn't make it convenient. So this is the Israeli consulate, and lots of people there. This There was a heavy like police and military presence, and there was just lots of great banners and signs.
That's
Um,
incredible.
this was kind of interesting. At the federal building in Westwood, there's a statue that honors veterans of the Spanish-American War. And so these are the young protesters climbing on this statue with the Palestinian flag. And of course, this is like kind of typical America. We're honoring these veterans of the Spanish-American War who kicked Spain out of the Philippines so that we could go in and
And
kill 220,000 Filipinos.
some estimates are as high as over 1 million.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. It was an absolute genocidal extermination in the Philippines. Went on for 12 years. The Filipinos were tough. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, they statues reveling in colonial massacres and genocide and extermination.
Yeah, it's
So
like you can't walk 20 paces in America without either coming across the site of a massacre or some monument honoring a massacre.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I do want to thank you. I have been very forthright about what's been going on in Palestine. In fact, even in 44 Days, my first book, I wrote that at least in terms of Western history, everything revolves around Jerusalem. This has been going on now for 3,000 years, and if there's going to be a nuclear war this century, the chances are it's going to be started by Israel. And I do want to thank you for calling it in your article what Israel is, and that is it's genocide. It's just and I'm tired of everybody's calling it apartheid. Apartheid is way too nice. I mean, what's going on in Israel? It's a fascist state and it's genocide. And Gaza is the largest concentration camp in human history with 2.1 million prisoners. So I really thank you for using the word genocide, because that's exactly what Israel is. It's a genocidal fascist state, and so not a lot of other writers except you and me will actually say that, but I'm really glad you did. So
Yeah, I believe that um, there's like about 7 conditions that have to be met to call something a genocide. And I believe that Israel meets like 4 of them. And it's not always what people think it is, like just, exterminating masses of people. It also has to do with erasing people's history and
hmm
like their language. And that's exactly what's been going on there for, 73 years.
yeah, well, all the way back to 1917 when with the Sykes-Picot agreement between the British and the French to carve up the Levant, and they started bringing in the Zionists started moving into Palestine back in 1917. So it's been going on for a long and killing and extorting and burning and robbing and everything else. It's been going on now for over 100 years. So it's just incredible. Were there any Zionist counter protests? Usually they kind of get out there and try to. Were there any counter protests?
You know, I didn't see any, but afterwards in the newspaper articles, I read that there was like a few. I didn't actually see them when I was there. I mean, there were so many people, and it was spread out. I don't know where they were. I believe they had a protest. The Zionists did the next day.
The next day, okay, all right. Well, what's the follow up now? I mean, I've read in pro-Palestinian media that it is considered to be the 10-day quote war, which it really isn't a war. It's the Israelis have 100 times more firepower than all the Palestinians have is some rockets. But this has been a huge increase in rocketry for Gaza. So, but I heard that the Israelis were begging the United States to get a ceasefire call because they were shocked at how effective Hamas was. How effective Hamas is, the government of the government of Gaza, and they couldn't believe how effective the Palestinians were in launching thousands of rockets, and apparently they've got thousands more. I've heard estimates like Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, they've got apparently up to 100,000 rockets ready to rain down on Zionist Israel. So I heard that the Israelis couldn't believe, they were hoping to wipe out thousands and thousands of people, and like they did in 2014. So a lot's happened in the last 7 years, and it didn't happen, and they were getting overwhelmed by the rockets being launched by Hamas and begging for a ceasefire. And I read that Biden wasn't terribly interested in doing anything about it, and saying that Israel has a right to defend itself. And then the Israelis went to Egypt and begged them to get a ceasefire going because they were shocked at the efficacy of the Palestinians to attack Israel. So have you heard something along those lines?
Well, yeah, and you just raised like multiple great questions. And way back when, the war historian Gabriel Kolko, he wrote the book Anatomy of War. He said what was going to happen in the future is the democratization of arms. So all these little resistance groups in these poor countries are eventually going to have better and better arms, and they're going to have more of a deterrent ability. And I think that's what went on with Hezbollah back in 2006.
Yeah, they kicked Israel's ass in 2006. Israel
Yes.
couldn't believe what happened.
Yeah, and that's also been what's happening in Gaza, whether it was in 2008, where Obama was completely silent about the massacre. That happened in late December and early January. He had been elected. He wasn't in office yet. He wouldn't say a word about that massacre. And then the arms got better then. They got better in 2012. There was another smaller massacre on Gaza. And then 2014, of course, Israel killed like 2,300 people in Gaza.
Yeah. Injured another 17,000.
Yeah, but the arms kept getting, the distances, the missiles went.
Accuracy.
The number of them, it's been increasing this whole time. And so the last, like, 2 or 3 times, basically, Israel has sued for peace. They're the ones that have, like, wanted the ceasefire to happen. And you got to remember, like, their airport was shut down for over a week. Their economy took big hits. Most of the IDF, they're reserves. So these people are school teachers. They have other jobs. So when they're all called up to be in one of these massacres, the rest of the economy is hurting too.
Mm-hmm.
So the Gaza resistance doesn't have to, kill a lot of people. All they have to do is stop Israel's economy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And you
That's an
probably,
important point I hadn't thought about.
yeah, and you probably remember early videos of all these flatbed trucks with tanks on them going on Israeli highways up to the Gaza border fence. So it was looking like there was going to be an invasion. But what happened is, on the very first day of this, Hamas shot like a Cornet missile at an Israeli Jeep and destroyed it. And those tanks and those flatbed trucks, those tanks never got off those trucks, and they all turned around because this was a new state of affairs,
Yeah.
and Israel would have lost a lot of tanks had they gone in there
Yeah.
like they have before.
That's really interesting. I don't know. A lot of people don't know this, but Hezbollah actually consults North Korea. Hezbollah controls the southern half of Lebanon, for those of you who don't know. IDF stands for Israeli Defense Force. It's actually not even a defense force. It's an extermination force.
Yes.
But anyway, Hezbollah in southern Lebanon consults North Korea for tunnel building and missile production, and that's why they are so formidable. They apparently have kilometers of tunnels in the mountains of southern Lebanon, and all thanks to the help of the North Koreans, who gained tremendous practical experience building tunnels during the Korean Genocide, 1950 to 1953, when the United States and the United Nations dropped more bombs on an area the size of Switzerland or Israel or Indiana in the United States than in World War II. It was just unbelievable. But anyway, yeah, you're right. I mean, and I'm beginning to wonder, maybe North Korea or maybe Hezbollah is helping Hamas in Gaza, which is south of Palestine, in the southern part of Palestine. And so maybe they're getting some help from North Korean technology and experience in Gaza as well as in southern. That's just total speculation, but it's not speculation that Hezbollah works with North Korea for tunnel building technology and missile production, and that's why I kept thinking, well, I mean, can you imagine what happened to Israel if both Gaza and Hezbollah started attacking from the north and the south? I don't think Israel could handle it. I think they would just be completely outclassed. What do you think?
No. Yeah, I don't think they would either. And that's not, and also if there was an uprising in the West Bank and in 48 Palestine proper, no, I don't think, I don't know. I think Israel they'd be ready for the Samson option about that point.
Which is to use nuclear weapons to survive.
Destroy.
There
You know,
you go.
yeah, as far as how those weapons might be getting to Gaza, in the victory celebration, Hamas's leaders thanked Iran for the weapons and some know-how. So, I mean, it seems impossible to me to get these weapons into Gaza, but it's being done. And I know Ali Abu Nima over at the Electronic Intifada, he described a trip of his where he was taken down one of these tunnels, and he described being on a platform that could hold two cars, and it was being lowered down into the tunnel.
Wow.
And there were lights and there were warning signals for people to get out of the way. Then
this was in Gaza?
Yeah, it's by
Ah.
the Egyptian border. And so the cars, they can go off this platform when it's finally level to the ground, and they can drive through a tunnel, and it's lighted. And what he said was that this is a commercial tunnel. This isn't even a military tunnel. So, and he said that when he was at the very bottom of it and he looked up, the sky looked very tiny.
God, that's incredible.
So,
I bet you the North Koreans, I mean, because nobody builds tunnels better than the North Koreans. I mean, the North Korea has thousands of kilometers of tunnels right now. I mean, because they're prepared for the United States to, try to destroy the country again, even with atomic weapons. So, well, and also North Korea helps Iran. North Korea works hand in hand with this is stuff that the United States doesn't like to advertise because it makes the North Koreans look good. And the North Koreans help Iran with their missile technology, and of course, Iran has missiles now that make Zionist Israel pee in their pants. I mean, it's just unreal what Iran has in missile technology. So I get it, but to me, I mean, this is all sort of tactical. But for me, what really came out of this May quote 10-day war, it wasn't really a war, but this 10-day confrontation is the fact that the Palestinians won the media war. I mean, this is the first time I have ever seen so many people so enlightened about Palestine, and the fact that the Israelis, blew up the building that had all Al Jazeera and all the Western media companies, and this is what's going on right now, and what happened in May is really exposing the fascist, the true fascist face of Israel, and I think that's probably more important than strategically. I think it's more important than the tactical victory that Hamas had. What do you think?
yeah, I mean, it's like the lid can't be kept on this anymore. It's too obvious. There's too many people that know about it. Every time you see like these Israeli settlers and their like genocidal racist actions over there, it's not appealing. Like the Palestinian cause is gaining more and more adherents.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see people being thrown out of their houses so that someone from Long Island can move into it.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of this can't be hidden anymore, despite all the censorship and the deplatforming. Patreon and Venmo, they weren't letting people send money to Palestinian charities. It's like incredible, and yet the Palestinians are still prevailing. And that's the main thing. And they're actually like taking the initiative. Like in all these other massacres, they were all known by some Israeli name, like Operation Protective Edge, or Operation Pillar of Salt, or whatever it was. This time, Hamas was the one who first named this battle, and they called it the Sword of Jerusalem. And then Israel came along the next day and said, no, it's called Operation Guardian of the Walls. Now, one of these has a really catchy name, and the other one is kind of defensive and kind of mediocre. So, to me, that symbolizes like Palestinians, the Palestinian cause, seizing the initiative, and all these rockets that Hamas launches. All this is a way of getting to a negotiation, and obviously these rockets don't do a lot of damage, but they're starting to have a deterrent effect. They're costing Israel money. They're hurting their economy. They just found out that they can't move tanks and armored personnel carriers into Gaza without
Getting
them.
blown up.
Yeah, yeah. So there's videos online where these Israeli soldiers are quoted as being frustrated, and they're just going to bomb something, and there's no strategic value in killing a couple thousand civilians. That it's a horrible thing for the Palestinians, but Israel doesn't gain anything. This is like the U.S. Uh, toting up body counts in Vietnam. It's meaningless. Israel doesn't gain anything by killing 2,000 civilians in Gaza or knocking down apartment buildings. Especially where the media also has their headquarters.
That's for sure.
They didn't blow up all of the rockets. They didn't do anything, on a strategic level. It was like, it didn't do anything for Israel, except, kind of showed the world, what they are.
The ugly face of Zionist fascism. It's really unbelievable. Well, what do you, you mentioned Electronic Intifada. I've actually donated money to them, and there's another Palestinian group in Portland, Oregon, or somewhere up in Oregon. I also donate to them. I just sent them a $20 check by mail, by bill pay from my U.S. account. So there's two. Electronic Intifada. I've actually donated to, and then this other. I feel terrible, but anyway, I get their emails, and I send them $20. I send them $20 every so often, just to show my support. So what's next for you in Los Angeles?
Well, I'm working on my second book, and
good.
Yeah, it's going to be about how animals are portrayed in movies. Not so much documentaries, but actually in fictional feature films. And it won't be looking at like the well-known things like Charlotte's Web or Babe or things like that. It'll be at other kinds of movies. And so I'm going to be doing that. And, I'm just I'm actually trying to build a new website. And, WordPress is supposed to be easy, but it's breaking my brain.
Yeah. Well, if it wasn't for Patrice, he's the one that hosts my website.
Oh, excellent.
That's why I give him all the royalties for China Rising to him, because that's the least I could do.
Everybody needs a Patrice.
Yeah. And if it weren't for him, I wouldn't even have a website. So, and I also I joined him on Patreon to support him on Patreon. He deserves it. He's an amazing guy. Well, listen, my friend, this has been very, very enlightening, and I want to thank you. I do want to point out, I don't know, Randy, if you've seen them. Have you seen the four-part documentary by Al Jazeera on Palestine?
I've seen parts of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to include that. I'm going to include the article I just did on your interview page. It's four documentaries, about 50 minutes each, and then there's a fifth one that has like a 3 or 4, maybe I think 4 experts who talk about the documentary and the history of Palestine, and it goes back to 1917, and it starts with Sykes-Picot, and it starts with the British Mandate and carving up Israel, carving up the Levant and Jordan and Lebanon and Syria, and Iraq and all that, and anybody who has a conscience and watches that four part documentary, if your blood is not boiling and if you're not enraged by what has been going on now for 104 years. Let me see, 1917, 2017, yeah, 104 years. If you're not incensed and outraged, then you must be a psychopath, because you cannot watch that four-part series without being absolutely stupefied by what's happened in Palestine, and so I'll include that too. And I want to thank you so much for being on, and I really appreciate your social activism and political activism and your interest in Palestine, and so take care, and again, I want to go back up here. Randy Shields, www.randyshields.com, woodworking artist. He's got some beautiful pictures of his work, and then I will also post the Greenville Post article that you did, the photo report that you did about the protests. Anything else, my friend?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on. I've always admired your work, and I think you do a phenomenal job. What I want to ask you is, sometime I want to interview you.
Just name the time, brother.
I think more people should know about Jeff J. Brown, because he's
anytime you want to interview me, just let me know. I love being the guest.
Oh, excellent. Let me get through 44 days. And thanks for the info on Dalian, because the more that I looked into it, it was amazing how it does resemble like San Francisco and the California coast.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, the eastern, not the western. No. The western side, yeah, towards China. On the Pacific side, it's not Mediterranean, but that is a little microclimate on the peninsula of Dalian, and it's colder than San Francisco, but it's definitely a Mediterranean climate in Dalian. So
there were a lot of resemblances there.
Yeah. All right, brother. I'm going to get this up next week, and I've got another. I interviewed Godfrey Roberts, and so he's kind of ahead of you, and I got another couple of articles, but I'll definitely get this up next week, and you can blast it all over planet Earth.
Great. Do you know, on Dissident Voice, Godfrey's book is the first one at the side. Mine is right under his.
Well, they're both. I've read Godfrey's book, and heck, I need to get yours and read yours and interview you about your book, because that's what I did with Godfrey. I interviewed him about his book.
Mine's very painless, Jeff. It's only about 180 pages.
All right, I'll buy it, and I'll get you back on, and we'll talk about it.
All right, great. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
There you go. Thanks, my friend. Talk to you later.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Bye.
Bye.
China Rising Radio Sinoland and China Tech News Flash signing out. Please make a contribution to all of my hard work. Thank you.